Welcome to the Global Discussion, a discussion with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. My name is Simon Hodgkins. Today, it's a real treat. We're joined by Jamie Schwartzman. Jamie, you're very welcome to the show. But before we get into it, let me ask you to maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to our worldwide audience. Over to you, Jamie.
Well, thank you, Simon. Thank you for having me. Um, I am a creative in Los Angeles. I run a studio called Flux Branding. We focus on brand strategy. And today we're going to talk about brands. We're going to talk about strategy and some of the brain science behind it.
Very good. And you're certainly in a very hot spot for creativity in LA. So you've got a lot going on over there, I know. And Flux Branding, just for people listening and watching to us today, it's been going for a long time. You've got a lot of expertise in this area. Tell us a little bit about the services that you do. Maybe some, you don't have to share the client names unless you wish to, but the actual type of work, the nitty gritty, what kind of things do you work on, Jamie?
Well, we do brand and we're brand strategy. And this is an area I've been working in this area for over 30 years. And when I began, there was a lot of problems in literacy around brand. And so I used to just spend a lot of time educating people on really the value and the importance of brand. I think there's easy confusion between brand and graphic design, right? Graphic design is an important tool that we use in brand to communicate, but it's not really what the brand is about. Brand is about the feel. Brand is about really emotional engineering. And that gets deeply into psychology. It gets into the human experience, references and associations. And that's where I draw upon my background as an artist. So I began as an artist. I have a master's in fine arts from UCLA and use that really to begin to understand how can work begin to affect people and how can that effect really inspire people and help communicate on a different level than just words and features and benefits.
Right, love that. And I really like how you describe your brand strategists that you work with. You call them restless creatives who deliver more than just great ideas, which I think is wonderful. I got a question for you on brand though, because we're talking to somebody here that's lived this world for many years and worked with great organizations. So in today's world, we're constantly bombarded with all these distractions. There's a new tool, new platform, new shiny AI thing every 5 minutes. And the business to business world and the business to consumer world, where they're trying to drive revenues and profits, a lot of creatives that I talk to, it's kind of frustrating because there's an awful lot of focus on demand-led marketing or revenue generation or short-term lead growth. And some people are missing the memo about how important it is to invest on brand. Just be interested in your thoughts in that in the context of where we're at today.
Well, look, we see brand as a long-term play. And it's really important to think about brand as really an asset on your balance sheet, right? So if we do a classic discussion of business fundamentals, right? You have your profit and loss and you have your balance sheet. Your balance sheet is where your assets and your liabilities are recorded, right? Whereas your profit and loss is how much did I spend? How much did I make? Income and expenses. And I think marketing folks, it's easy for them to think about brand as a P&L based activity. How much did I spend on my brand? What did it make me? And I think that's really not the right way to think about brand. Brand is a long-term asset, like a capital expenditure. It's something that grows, and this is why we call it brand equity, right? Equity is not a P&L thing. So, the marketing discipline has evolved dramatically in the last 20 years. And with digital platforms, really the number of options and the analytics that are around marketing has just exploded. And that I think has developed an opportunity for us in brand to really capture the creative aspect that used to be in marketing has become its own discipline in branding. So for us, we're not the ones that are developing leads. We are not the ones that are generating sales. We're sort of almost think of us as like pre-marketing. Who are you? What's your true identity? How are you different? How are you going to show up? How are you going to play? And trying to develop that in a way that's easily communicable by everybody within the organization. And we have a methodology for doing this. If you'd like, we can kind of dive into it and I'll give you some behind the scenes look of what we do in branding.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. I want to ask you, though, if I can, Jamie, just in terms of what you've said there. Are there changes to your workflow, even in the last 12, 24 months? Because AI seems to be pervasive, it's everywhere, it seems to be reaching into every area of marketing, into brand. How heavily are you invested in AI workflows at this moment in time? Is there a balance? How do you view that?
Well, I would say we have extensive use of AI at this point in time. We use platforms that are interesting and private. And I would say for us, it's a combination of the large language model and the small language model. And in many ways, what we're doing in brand is we're training small language models. And these small language models are private and not shared with the larger world and can be available for the clients themselves. We use a platform that has individual workspaces for each different client. And as we're developing new intelligence and we're developing brand and tone of voice, these are all fueling a knowledge base. That knowledge base then goes back to reinforce and allow us to create even more and more things. And the tools are evolving quickly. In fact, I would say this week I had um, my most profound AI experience is with the new Google platform called Notebook LM. And if you haven't checked out Notebook LM, I suggest you do that. You can take a series of sources, collect them into a notebook, press a button, and get a dialogue like this, like you and I are having, Simon, around those topics. And it allows for the access to very deep information that may not be really accessible to you. We use it for scientific documents and studies that are highly technical, highly jargonized. I can't read these things, but by running them through these kinds of programs, I can listen to a dialogue about them. It was a study on olfactory processing and how the brain develops new pathways developed on olfactories. And it was deep. Essentially, it was a study about peanut butter. So by hearing it in terms of somebody talking about how peanut butter can, I mean, think about peanut butter, right? There's not one molecule that you are responding to. It's a collection of molecules, and the brain is not responding to each individual molecule. We collect it up, we have a singular experience, and we say, okay, peanut butter. This is important part of brain science. And when we think about that, and it is these are the things that we use in brand, right? How do we begin to get those same types of responses, dopamine reactions, right? New neural pathways, things that are memorable and sticky. This is the world of what's happening in contemporary brand. And I would say AI, fundamental change for us. Look, we used to deliver our documents just as PDFs. I think those days are, the PDF is important. It's really great to have a document. I love documents and I love paper. But in the end of the day, it's hard to communicate. And by delivering these things within platforms, we're allowing that brand tone of voice to become more accessible for everybody within the organization. That creates more consistency. It, just contributes more to brand, but also it's got to allow for human flexibility. And so this is where I see AI not as I don't have the big fear factor against it. I mean, I guess I do on the big areas, but I think of it as a tool, like any tool, like a chainsaw, right? Chainsaw, I can, cut wood for my fireplace. Chainsaw, I can do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, it depends on how do you use the tool, right? And for me, I learned to use tools. I love using tools. And this is a new tool set that is incredible. It's fundamental, it's transformative. I'm so excited. And I think I'm so lucky to be alive right now to be living this.
Well, thank you for sharing that insight, Jamie. I certainly appreciate that. It's great to get an insight into how you're working with it and extensively at this stage. It's great to hear. I want to go back though, because you mentioned a little bit about the methodology and the process that you do. Could you give us a quick whistle-stop tour of how that works when you're working on brand projects?
Yeah, sure. Brands, think of something that is brilliant, right? Something that you've seen that catches your attention and sparkles and really captures your imagination. This is the result of something that is not accidental. These can be actually programmed. And when we approach these things, we have to get to the fundamental truth of the brand. I really don't think we really create brands. I think we reveal the brand that is there. And so we have a process for going through this. I think about it like the sculptor, right? The sculptor releasing the form from the stone. In many ways, the process of brand is similar to that. We have a four-step process. We call it the IDEA method, IDEA. These are the steps. And quite frankly, this is best practices in branding. I've developed a methodology for describing it. So I is Ignite. Ignite is when we do our brand discovery. And we can't really talk about a brand until we learn and discover it. And I like to say, earn the right to speak on its behalf. These are processes where we do workshops, we do offsite retreats, we do market research studies, we talk to people, in-depth interviews. And this is another area that the AI is helping. We can do in-depth interviews, structured conversations, but when we're talking, it's not always highly structured. It's not like a form. These are human dialogues. But we can take that human dialogue, we can put it into AI, and we can analyze trends across a number of different conversations. And AI is great at drawing connections and associations between different disparate things. Once we're done with Ignite, we move into distill. Distill is our brand strategy or brand positioning phase. This is where we write the Bible. There's a lot of copywriting involved in what we do. And the copywriting, this is not volume copy. Think of it as poetic copy. Very specifically selected words that provide not only communication, but also rhythm and meter and feel. So there's a lot going on in those areas too. And they're associated with typically some pictures. We used to call them mood boards in the old days. We call them creative territories. And those creative territories give a sense of, okay, where are we headed? We don't know exactly the route, but we know we're going, to this point of the compass. That brings us to E, energize. Energize is where we do visual language. Now we've got strategy, we've got our core values, we've got the universal selling principles, we've got the brand promises, we've got description, services matrix, a deep dive into what and who we are. Now we can develop visuals to represent it. We don't have a lot of time. We're faced with so much content right now. Visuals are critically important. A picture does paint 1,000 words, and 1,000 words takes a long time to read. So if I can do visuals that are strategic and really represent and reflect the strategy, I can communicate more quickly, and that's effective. Activate. Activate is where we do what we call brand campaigns, but it's easy to confuse those with marketing campaigns. In brand campaigns, we're doing the fundamental elements. Website is one of them. Website has become, it's interesting. I'm 62, so I remember the days of sitting on my 14.4 baud modem looking at Netscape Navigator. And at that time, it's similar to what I was seeing with AI right now, realizing this is going to fundamentally change how things work. And the website used to be a nice to have. I would say now it is it is home turf. It is the most important single piece of collateral that your business will have. So, and who's doing that for you? Is it your marketing team doing your website? Who's writing it? These are important parts of the brand. So in Activate, it's that. But we take it one step further. We like to do a lot of brand training. And this is where we'll do work with the brand team, with the product team, with the sales team, with the education team, integrated marketing folks, social media people, and get them to understand and learn the brand. It's not good enough for me to just give them the document. We'll do a one-day retreat. We do exercises. We explore. We have an experience together, because this is how things become sticky when we have an experience. And so that's kind of where we let off. At that point in time, the brand is there and social media team takes over. We sometimes do a brand pulse, where we'll come in on a quarterly basis, review the work that's happening, and take a look at it. And the last thing I'd say, Simon, is that the value of having an outsider do this is immeasurable. I like to say it's difficult to do this when you're drinking your own Kool-Aid. And it's so easy. And we even have that danger. In many cases, we just finished a brand for a very large hair care company, 100-year-old brand owned by a big German, massive German holding company. And this was a 14-month process. After 14 months, we start drinking the Kool-Aid too. So it's, I would say, for those of you that are listening to the podcast that may be new in organizations, you have a very valuable perspective by being new, and try to maintain that newness, even if you're old. Look at it again. Look at things with fresh eyes. That's the way to really start to see it in a pure objective fashion.
Thank you, Jamie. And thank you so much indeed for sharing that methodology, your IDEA process, and also the other elements that you do, whether it's sort of the barometer, the check-in, Yeah, it's really useful to hear you share that. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Now, you said a statement a moment ago. You said, think of something that is brilliant. And my mind went bing, bing, bing. I know that word brilliant, and you know it too. Tell us all about brilliant.
Well, I'm writing a book right now. It's Brilliant, the Art and Science of Radiant Brands. And this all stemmed from a lunch that I had with a woman whose family was in the diamond business. And we were having, this was at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. We were looking at art, we were having lunch, and this woman starts telling me about the process of diamonds. And think about this. You and I could be walking along, we could stumble across the largest diamond in the world. We wouldn't even know what it is. It looks like a pebble to you and I. So the first step is to really begin to explore and uncover what are those raw gems? And they're hard to find. You need somebody who knows what they're looking for and can recognize something that looks like value. The untrained person cannot recognize and find the raw material. That's the first step. The second step in at least the gemstone process is a strategist comes in and looks at that piece, looks at that particular stone and says, okay, if we're able to cut these facets and we're able to shape this in a certain fashion, we can create a brilliant stone. That is very important because we want to remove as little of the raw material as possible and provide the facets that are going to be able to allow that thing to sparkle and be radiant, right? So now you've got your strategist who's marking the cuts. Then it needs to go in the hands of a skilled craftsman who can make those cuts and who can follow the strategy and actually cut the stones. And it's high risk, right? You're off by a small percent or small degree, you have lost, there's dullness. So it really does require a craftsman to be able to do those cuts. Now you've got a stone. It's sparkling, it's brilliant. What are you going to do with it? Now you need a setter who's going to put it into some kind of a setting, who's going to merchandise it in some sort of a store, wrap it around a name, Tiffany, De Beers, whatever it is. But this is very analogous to the process of branding. So that's what I'm writing on. And the other thing I would say is that this process of brilliance, right, of us recognizing brilliance, this is hardwired into us. It's instinctual. And in many ways, it was one of the things that ensured the survival of our species. Being able to recognize the glint or glimmer of something in the distance might be water. Rustle in the leaves could be an approaching predator. A change in the sky could be an approaching storm. So these things were all ways that we as a species began to build these pathways that could help ensure our survival. We can draw upon these things today. These are innate human neurological pathways that are part of the process. And understanding them allows for great power. And then the book that I'm writing isn't really a how-to brand. But I would say that the process that we're talking about, creative processes, artistic processes, these can sometimes be very hard to grasp for business leaders who are analytical thinkers and are very, are looking at spreadsheets and looking at results. And by allowing those individuals to have more literacy about brand, it will help them engage better with creative people. And so my real hope here is to help the business community understand the value of creative so that they can work better with creative. They can make better decisions. They can hire better people. And ultimately that will result in better brands that's going to inspire more people. So that's the concept of Brilliant. I'm super excited about it. It's all coming together right now. And if you're interested in Brilliant, you can certainly follow its development right now. I put out an email every month on the first Tuesday of the month. The name of this communication is First Tuesday. I've been doing it for 178 months consistently. So it's a long-term process. And right now, every month I'm working out all of the foundational pieces for Brilliant. And you can find that on my website at fluxbranding.com if you just go there. And we'll talk later too, because there's some other pretty cool tools and free stuff on my website that I can share with you.
Thank you, Jamie. It is truly brilliant. When do you think, I know you're still working on it and crafting it and polishing up the gemstone. When do you think it will be available? Like, have you got a target date in mind at this moment, or not? Not right.
Early 26, early
Okay,
26.
all right.
Yeah.
We
And,
can look forward to it. Yeah.
there's a team working on it with me, which is exciting. But I'm developing all the support materials for it. So it's a process that's been certainly in my head for decades. And I'm excited to be able to share some of these ideas with the world in a written form.
Well, thank you, Jamie. I got a couple of quick questions I want to ask you before we run out of time here today. The road ahead. You've been doing this a long time. You're writing a book. That's obviously going to be taking up some of your time. But when you think about the next 6, 12 months, what's on your roadmap? What's on your horizon? What are you excited about?
Well, I think certainly different ways to incorporate AI into our processes, and not only into our processes, but into how we deliver. And I think that brand studios like us will be delivering AI solutions with fully trained small language models to allow easier iteration for our clients. We work with a platform called Aurora, and Aurora has private workspaces for every project, collaborative. It's a collaborative AI tool, which is kind of cool, where these knowledge bases are shared between different team members and we can iterate and bounce it off each other. But I would say on AI too, it's still the human factor, right? The human factor plus the AI factor is what I'm so excited about. The other thing I would say in the year ahead is we're in a time of great change. Uh, our studio is called Flux. I It came from something my mother told me. My mother said, Jamie, the only constant is change. And I would say as a young man, I really didn't like that. I wanted things to be stable. I wanted to have a consistency. And I tried for that a long time. As futile attempts, I would say. Now I've come to realize that accepting change is there can be great power in accepting change and learning to use change in many ways as a means of acceleration, as a means of power. So excited about that. I live in the United States. I'm in Los Angeles. We're in a time of a lot of unrest. And this really all comes from a great move towards polarization. There's very little middle ground right now. And I think this is all the result of communications technology. We've become so good at it. And now we can narrowcast and we can beam messages directly to an individual. And the manipulative and coercive opportunities have never been greater. So I don't think we've really found the ethical and moral center in communications right now. There's a lot of variability on that. So I think we're in a great time of testing. And I think this next period is going to be a time of testing. And I've decided that I'm going to act in a certain ethical and moral way, even though I have the ability to do very manipulative and coercive tactics. I am selective about how I'm going to employ those, and that's my choice.
Well, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And truly a time of flux, particularly in your part of the world for sure. And it comes back to the analogy of the chainsaw, right? How you decide to use a tool makes all the difference. And that ethical approach and doing things right, I think hopefully will win out in the end. Look, before we do come to a close here, two last quick ones from me. I'm going to ask you in a moment, Jamie, to leave us with some parting thoughts, some insight, or just something you want to leave our audience with. But before I do that, you mentioned the website, give that out again. And if people want to connect with you and find out more, is the best way to join the newsletter, connect with you on LinkedIn? What works for you, Jamie?
Yeah, well, I mean, first come to our website at fluxbranding.com. We have a really cool tool. It's this brand decoder. And if you're interested in brand and you want to get a sense of things, we're deep into archetypes. So we've developed our own archetype detection and decoder tool. You answer 6 questions, it gives you an answer of what is your brand personality type? And you will either be an explorer, a dreamer, a lover, or a protector. One of those. And you don't have to put in your email. If you want to take the quiz, go for it. If you'd like a report, put in your email. We'll email you about a 25-page detailed report with your answers and some analysis of it, using this algorithm that we've built. So that's a great tool. I encourage you to do it. Also, I do a process called the brand blueprint. And if you are a brand professional and you're struggling to document a roadmap of what's going on. The brand blueprint is a process. It's super fun. We do it together. It's a 30-minute discussion. And then I'm able to transform that into a report that gives you a gap analysis, the situational what's going on right now, what do you hope to gain, what are the goals, and that helps at least get things a little bit moved down the road. I do charge for that, but anybody who's listening to this podcast, if you just get in touch with me, you can send me an email just direct to Jamie, Jamie at fluxbranding.com. Mention the name of the podcast and I'd be happy to get on the line with you and do a brand blueprint. And then, if you want to come to First Tuesday, it's a great newsletter. It always has interesting, a little bit on design, a little bit on thought, a little bit on sometimes some opinion stuff. So I encourage you to come over to our website and check that out.
Wonderful. And I'd encourage everybody to go and find out a lot more about the world of Jamie if you're not already in that world. There's a lot going on. I'm really looking forward to the book coming out as well, Jamie. So look,
Thanks, Simon.
We're almost at the end. What's the parting thought? What do you want to leave us with, Jamie?
Well, I would say, look around, open up. And, it's so funny that in the United States, the word woke is become polarized, right? Personally, I like being awake. I like having my eyes open. I want to be awake, alive, and aware. And so I'd just encourage everybody who's here, start thinking around, look around. And if you're looking at your own organization and trying to, elevate your brand, find what's brilliant. Don't look at the market and try to be what the market wants. That is not, I can't be something that people want me to be. And your business can't do it either. So look at what's truly, where are the gems within your organization? How are you going to create facets that are going to create windows into that inside? What are the angles that you're going to use? How are you going to position things in the ways that they're going to radiate and reflect as much throughout the process? And ultimately, try to find your inner radiance. What makes you special? What makes you unique? What makes you better? And you don't have to be everything to everybody. Be something to a really targeted set of people. That's my parting thought.
Well, I really like that. And what a great thought to leave us with, Jamie. That brings us nicely to the end of our time today, the end of this episode of the Global Discussion. I'm going to thank everybody who's been watching or listening to this episode. I would hope that you're going to like, follow, subscribe, do all the things I need you to do to help support the Global Discussion. And certainly go and check out everything Jamie's working on. You won't be disappointed. And all that remains is for me to say thank you to Jamie for being on the show. And hopefully you'll join me back here for some more discussions with creatives and leaders and thinkers just like Jamie. But Jamie, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today. Thanks very much for your time.
Likewise, Simon, it is a pleasure.